I'm Chris Wallace.
I'm Harris Faulkner.
I'm Greg Gutfeld, and this is the Fox News Rundown.
Friday, October 8th, 2021. I'm Chris Foster. President Biden's economic agenda is stuck with Democrats in Congress disagreeing among themselves.
I mean, they're in real trouble. And I think there's if you had to bet, you would bet that Democrats will lose the House, maybe not the Senate, but the House. If you can't pass your own agenda with a majority, slim as it is, you don't deserve to return a majority in the House.
We speak with Fox News Sunday host Chris Wallace.
I'm Lisa Brady. The pandemic is hitting people in the pocketbook as supply chain issues continue to fuel hotter inflation.
The big question is just how long is it going to run this hot and this high? And that's where the debate comes in.
And I'm Greg Jarrett. I've got the final word on the Fox News Rundown.
President Biden's honeymoon period, as it's known, where new presidents are cut more slack by the public, ended around the end of August. More people were dying of COVID-19, the government of Afghanistan fell as American troops were pulling out, and more Americans then than not said they disapproved of the job the president was doing. Overall, since then, things have only gotten worse on that front for him. His approval rating is at just 38% in a poll out this week from Quinnipiac University.
It's a combination of a few things. First of all, specific events like Afghanistan, like the horror show under the bridge in Del Rio, Texas, with 15,000 Haitians there.
Chris Wallace is the host of Fox News Sunday.
Which really just gave the lie to the idea that we have any control over the border. The complete disarray in passing any part of the domestic agenda last week. But I think it's more than that. I think, this is a case where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And the whole is just this increasing sense in Washington. Can anybody here play the game? Is anybody here competent? And there's some astonishing number where I think 55% of people polled don't think that Joe Biden is and the Biden administration is competent right now. That's pretty bad. That's not a policy issue. That's an issue of just an ability to function. And I mean, they desperately need something to go right. And whether it's infrastructure, whether it's a spending bill, whatever it is, they just need something to go right, and it hasn't in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, what we were supposed to get, one of the selling points of Joe Biden was that we were going to get this boring competency, that he'd been around so long and knew how to shake hands and like you said, play the game, but it's just, it's everything's stuck, nothing's happening. Well, and there was something else this week, talk about. There are two cases of this, with friends like this who needs enemies. John Kerry, who's been known to say some dumb things over the years, like I was for it before I was against it, or maybe it was I was against it before I was for it, whichever it is, was speaking in France and said that Joe Biden was completely unaware that making this deal with Britain to sell Australia nuclear submarine technology was unaware that this was going to tick off the French. Hello? Talk about chipping away at competence. And then there was Terry McAuliffe in an event that was not supposed to be on the record, talking about Biden's unpopularity and basically that, he's a weight, not a help in getting elected governor of Virginia in a month. So, people... The Joe Biden doesn't have a lot of support and a lot of help these days. I mean, at least when we spoke a week ago, there was this big sense of urgency about a lot of stuff, funding the federal government, avoiding debt default, and passing infrastructure and the Democrats' big spending plan. At least now there's some breathing room on all of it. Yeah. And I mean, look, it's better than the government shutdown. It's certainly better than a government default, which we've never seen before. So we don't even know how terrible that would be. Those are going to be kicked down the road into December. But, there's a limit to how good I think people can feel about that because they haven't been settled. They've just simply been delayed for about 6-8 weeks. And meanwhile, we're still in a situation with the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure plan, which is nowhere in the House. I mean, they can't pass it, even though the Democrats have a majority. And what originally was a $3.5 trillion tax and spend social bill, which at this point, they don't even pretend that they're going to need Republican support, but they can't even get an agreement among Democrats. So there's this sense, really right now, I think, in so many words, what
people, both supporters and opponents of the Biden White House, are feeling. Can anybody there play this game?
It seems like there were months of these bad faith non-negotiations where the progressive Democrats said, we're going to get this, and the centrists said, we're going to get this. At least now they realize, okay, both sides realize, no, we're not going to get this. And so at least now you can negotiate from some place of reality and some place of truth.
Well, I agree with that. And now we at least have a top-line number from the moderates, which is nowhere near $3.5 trillion. Manchin keeps talking about $1.5 trillion. Some of the Democrats in the House, Pramila Jayapal, who's the head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus in the House, is saying, well, no, more like 2.8, 2.9. No, Congresswoman, you're not going to get 2.8, 2.9. You have nothing to bargain with. You don't have the votes. So, and this is one of the things I don't understand. Let's say you've got $2 trillion in spending. The left wing of the Democratic Party, both in the House and the Senate, Bernie Sanders saying this too, is making it sound like, that's a pittance. That's disgraceful. $2 trillion in social spending would be one of the biggest spending bills in history. And the idea that I don't know, if I had a choice between $2 trillion for my cause, whatever that cause was, or zero, because they have no weight. I mean, the only weight they have is we can sabotage the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which incidentally will create a lot of jobs that your constituents that you're so concerned about would like to have. I mean, I understand bargaining, but you got to be somewhat realistic. It seems to me that if you get to $2 trillion or $2.2 trillion or something like that, the Democrats on the left wing of the party ought to consider that a huge victory, and they ought to take it.
Yeah, I mean, one of their questions for Manchin and Kirsten Sinema from Arizona is, okay, you can give us this top line number, but what do we cut? Let's talk about what you're going to take out of it. Is it the free community college, or is it the Medicare expansion, or what is it? Some of that stuff is going to be popular with the American people, too.
Well, yeah, but again, I mean, and there are two arguments about this, and I went in this with a very smart liberal congressman on Sunday, Ro Khanna from California, and there are two arguments. One is fund fewer things, but fund them for longer. In other words, instead of the whole pie, take 60% of the pie and really do it well. Or the other idea is, take the whole pie and just shrink it. So instead of you're funding it for 10 years, you're funding it for 3 or 4 years, and you just assume that it's going to become so wedded, ingrained in American society that you won't be able to take it back. That's a legitimate argument, which to do, but either way, it seems to me that you can figure out. I mean, I remember covering Ronald Reagan back in the 80s, and he was he was famous for saying, I'd rather have 80% of something than 100% of nothing. And the left wing of the party, the squad, is in danger of getting 100% of nothing. I don't know that that's something they want to run on in 2022 in the midterm elections. I mean, they're in real trouble. And I think there's if you had to bet, you would bet that Democrats will lose the House, maybe not the Senate, but the House. If you can't pass your own agenda with a majority, slim as it is, you don't deserve to return a majority in the House.
Well, I mean, just a sort of petty-sounding thing about this inter-party fighting is that Senator Sinema got chased into a restroom by some activists the other day. This statement going around for Democrats to sign condemning that, and Bernie Sanders says, nope, not going to sign it unless there's some language in there criticizing her.
I thought that was kind of cheap on his part. Look, if you can't go into the ladies' room by yourself and, not be hectored by activists, if the activists want to wait outside the door and hector you once you get out, there was no violence there, that's fine. But, there ought to be some zone of privacy, and I think the ladies' room is it. And I was actually surprised at Joe Biden, who said, I thought it was inappropriate, but as part of the process. When did that become part of the process? That people are followed into the bathrooms and people are lobbying them and taking videos and things like that. Is it the end of the world? No, but I think it's just part of the coarsening of our political discussion. And I understand passion, and I understand people feeling very strongly one way or the other. But, there's a line somewhere, and that certainly crossed it.
I guess maybe speaking to that coarsening, there's this new Gallup poll that trust in politicians is down, as usual, but it's actually even lower. What I found more interesting is that trust in other voters is down. Like, you don't trust your neighbors to do the right thing. And trust in media, by the way, big media, newspapers, people like you and to a certain extent me, trust in is down to 7% in this Gallup poll. I don't know if there's anything to be done about any of it.
Wait. Why me, but not you? Why you only to a certain extent, Chris? They don't
because
trust you either.
they don't, but they care about me less. They may trust me just as little,
I don't know.
but they care less.
I hear a lot of people say they just hate you. But in any case, no. Look, here's what I think about this, and I hate it. It is that it's not just that you're conservative or liberal, Republican or Democrat. It's tribal. You know, where you fit on the political spectrum also says a lot about what part of the country you live in, whether you live in the cities or the suburbs or rural, your view of faith, the kinds of media you consume and the kinds you don't. And there was a wonderful statistic after the 2020 election about the tremendous majority that Trump had in precincts or counties that had a Cracker Barrel in it. And conversely, the tremendous majority that Biden had in the areas that had a Starbucks. And so what I'm saying is that there are these tribes, and you just and it's not just that you root for your tribe. You're actively rooting, and in fact, apparently more motivating than rooting for your tribe is rooting against the other tribe because you see them as such a threat. And I think that's where we are now in our politics and our media, in our society. And, you know, you see it in school board meetings about the vaccine and masks and all the views of mandates and stuff. It has just completely colored our reality, both on the right and the left. And I think it's very sad because as a result, it's almost impossible to have a good faith conversation with somebody who disagrees with you.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, there used to be, and maybe it's rose-colored glasses, but it seems to me that there used to be, like you said, good faith political debate where you were coming from a place of facts, but then, you know, your opinion was your opinion and you could shake hands and move on. And that seems to be, sadly, not around.
No, I came to Washington in 1978. There was still legislating going on, and there was still, whether it was on taxes or you know, the big tax reform bill of Reagan's in '86, Social Security, the reform bill that kicked the can down the road for Social Security solvency for about 2 or 3 decades, immigration. Now, you can argue whether or not those were good plans or not, but they were bipartisan plans where people came together, people accepted 60% of what they wanted, held their nose on the other 40%, and made some incremental progress. That doesn't happen anymore. I mean, it just doesn't happen. And that is one of the saddest things about what I've seen over the last 4 decades in Washington. And, you know, I don't blame one party more than the other. I think there's enough blame to go around.
Chris Wallace, host of Fox News Sunday. Thanks, Chris.
Good to talk to you, Chris.
This is Greg Jarrett with your Fox News commentary coming up.
Not only is pumpkin season in full swing, we now have just 78 days until Christmas, a countdown that may be extra stressful for many retailers and manufacturers this year because the pandemic still isn't over. It's led to many ripple effects on supply chains and log jams at ports.
We've added another 1,000 longshore members, and they've been showing up with record productivity.
But Gene Siraka, executive director of the Port of Los Angeles, also told Fox's Maria Bartiromo this week there's still a shortage of truckers, and overall, the supply crunch isn't easing up yet.
And there are a number of reasons for that. One is that we still have a labor crunch.
Fox business correspondent Lydia Hu.
We don't have enough people globally working in our ports because there are just asymmetrical COVID policies happening in various regions of the world. And in some places, like in China, all you need is one COVID case in some of the ports and it shuts down the entire port. For those types of reasons, we're seeing it's very hard to get predictable shipments out and into the water. And then when they do arrive at their destinations, say, for example, in LA or New York or down south in Georgia, we have so many ships coming in at the same time that they don't have enough room to dock and we don't have enough people to unload the ships. And then we also have a trucking shortage. It's estimated that we need something like 60,000 truck drivers in the United States to meet the demand. We don't have them. So that means it takes longer to get our packages from the ships to their destinations.
Waiting at the other end are retailers and their suppliers who can't get everything they want and may have to pay more for what they do get.
I think right now is when we're starting to hear from every vendor.
Melissa McCollum is a franchisee. She owns a Learning Express Toys location in Birmingham, Alabama, and by mid-September had only received about 1/4 of the holiday toys they're expecting. By then, it should have been 50%, and the costs are rising.
Like I get emails daily saying not only are they experiencing supply chain issues, they're going to have to raise prices because of what it's costing them to get containers from China, and then they're having to more or less air freight everything over, costing them a lot of money. So they're having to pass on the cost to us, and which is raising the retail price of a lot of items. So that's really starting to happen right now in September and October. We're seeing a lot of price increases from our vendors.
Have you also had to try to prep for the holiday season sooner because of the price issues and having it be more difficult just to get things into the store?
Exactly. We're doing our best that we can to order early. We started ordering in June for our holiday season, and just getting our hands on what we can and our bestseller items that we know we generally sell every year, core items, and just get as much as we can and putting them in storage, off-site storage, and just stocking up the best we can now, hoping to have the best inventory we can when the holiday shopping does start.
As I know you're a franchisee, but in general terms, a business like yours that's smaller than like a Home Depot or certainly than, something like an Amazon, is it easier for you to keep up with demand because you don't need as many?
I think so, yeah. It definitely does help that we're not having to order a whole container of items, and we can order just, 24 pieces of something and not having to order in such a big bulk type ways as the big box stores do.
But I know at this point, what does all of this mean for your business? The combination of the supply chain issues and the higher costs with inflation. How concerned are you going forward beyond, this holiday season?
Basically, we've got to just try to get everything we can right now. And I think as time goes on, into the holidays, it's going to be getting the best prices. Our best cost now, getting stuff in now, and will also affect the shopping season. And that's why so many stores are telling customers to shop early to get the best prices, the best product. With the worrying about the holiday sales, I just don't know because people haven't gotten in that mode just yet. So we're hoping to make it through the holidays, but like you said, it's mainly also worrying about the early spring and getting product during that time as well.
One other thing, just in terms of the pandemic not being over, unfortunately, have you thought about having to pass more of the cost onto the customer? Have you been able to not do that much at this point? Because are you concerned, about people sticking with you, if you will?
Yeah, exactly. That's a real struggle for us. When we're having to pay more for the products, it is causing us have to raise the prices, and you look at it, you can only go so far with that. A toy can only cost so much before people aren't gonna buy it. So it makes us aware also that they can go to Amazon or to big box stores and pay less for things, and that's not what we want to do. We don't want to be pricier than everyone else. We do want people to shop with us. But at some point, if they keep raising their prices on us, and we also get a lot of surcharges added on as well for shipping costs and shipping reasons, then you almost have to charge more to make money.
And that brings us back to Fox Business's Lydia Hu and inflation. Prices rising for a wide variety of goods, not just gas and milk, as those supply chain issues push up production and delivery costs.
You won't find anybody that says that we have inflation that's running away and out of control. Certainly people are very cautious to say this is not what happened during the 1970s. But you really can't deny that inflation is here and that Americans are feeling it in their pocketbook. I mean, the latest estimate is that inflation is up 5.3% over last year, which means that across the board for all the types of consumer products that you and I and everyone else need, from food to electronics, appliances, clothing, it's costing on average about 5.3% more than it did just a year ago, when usually the year-over-year rate is right around 2%. So it's higher and hotter than what it usually is. The big question is just how long is it going to run this hot and this high? And that's where the debate comes in. You know, the Federal Reserve has insisted that it's transitory, which means that it's temporary and it's driven by the pandemic. But there's a debate and a lot of concern that that's not true, that we've had a lot of free cash injected into the system, which means we have a lot of money chasing fewer products being made available because of supply chain issues. And that's where we are seeing prices go up. More money chasing fewer goods. And how long is that going to last?
When it comes to the labor crunch, the worker shortage, it doesn't seem as though there's a big rush back to the labor market for people who haven't gone back yet for a variety of reasons. Is there any evidence that the millions of people who still haven't come back will anytime soon?
We're still waiting for an indication that more people are being hired and placed in job openings. The last report we got from August was a big mega miss in terms of what was expected. You know, we were expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of like 728,000 jobs having been added for the month of August, and it came in under 300,000, well under 300,000. And it was a big surprise. And the question was, you know, why? Is this driven by the Delta variant? Is this driven by stimulus benefits, the extended unemployment, the boosted unemployment stimulus benefits still being distributed? A lot of those answers to those questions hopefully will be hinted at when we get the next jobs report, which comes out on Friday morning. We're going to be looking to see how many people were hired for the month of September, because that's going to capture the end of those stimulus benefits, the boosted unemployment benefits. The hope is that you'll see more people having returned to the job market. With that having been said, though, there are other indications that people are reluctant to return to the office. There's more of an increased expectation that work be work from home or hybrid. There's an expectation that companies now be more flexible. And people are increasingly, surveys show, becoming more skeptical about returning to a job that they possibly had before or during the pandemic. It is a workers' market out there. Hiring is happening left, right, and center. Companies are competing for the same pool of workers, trying to make their jobs look attractive. And, you know, workers are negotiating that. So they're using that to their advantage, asking for more money, for more flexible benefits. And it's just trying to find the match, the employees, the workers finding the jobs that they're willing to go back to. And so far, we're just not seeing that yet.
Fox business correspondent Lydia Hu, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Stay on top of the latest news and information from Fox News. Listen and download the Fox News Hourly Update on your time. The trending stories you need anytime you want it. Listen and download now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. Subscribe to this podcast at foxnewspodcasts.com.
And now, some good news with Tonya J. Powers. Fox News is marking its 25th anniversary, celebrating its October 1996 launch. Special coverage is planned starting on Sunday night with the one-hour Fox News channel 25 Years. It will feature interviews and behind-the-scenes footage and showcase the evolution of the channel from the perspective of some of its most prominent personalities, like Bret Baier, Jennifer Griffin, and Steve Doocy. There will also be short videos commemorating the anniversary from celebrities and other guests, including former President George W. Bush and NFL legend Brett Favre. Fox News Channel 25 Years airs Sunday night at 10 o'clock Eastern on Fox. Tonya J. Powers, Fox News.
It's time for your Fox News commentary. Greg Jarrett. What's on your mind?
No one should be physically attacked or threatened with bodily harm. That is a given. But Attorney General Merrick Garland is exploiting this fundamental doctrine as a pretext to coerce and frighten parents whose only supposed crime is seeking to improve their children's education. Garland intends to silence mothers and fathers who vigorously oppose their students being indoctrinated with critical race theory and other socialist or Marxist dogma. To accomplish it, Garland plans to weaponize the immense powers of the FBI and the Department of Justice to bully parents into submission under the guise of combating what he refers to as intimidation. He is exerting more intimidation with superior force. He aspires to criminalize contentiousness. These are menacing and unconscionable tactics by him designed to abolish free speech rights under the threat of federal investigation, arrest, and prosecution. In essence, the Attorney General has ordered you to shut up or else. The genesis of Garland's dictate can be found in a recent letter sent to President Joe Biden from the National School Boards Association. The leftist group demands that the DOJ use domestic terrorism laws against parents who attend school board meetings to vocalize their opposition to the inclusion of critical race theory within classroom instruction, as well as mask mandates for children. Right on cue, Garland capitulated by threatening to investigate and prosecute parents who dare to protest against the teaching of what they regard as woke propaganda and radical brainwashing in classrooms. In his order, Garland embarrassingly misstates constitutional law. He claims that the First Amendment does not protect, quote, efforts to intimidate individuals based on their views. What? Where is that written in the myriad of U.S. Supreme Court decisions involving free speech? Even more confounding was the Attorney General's assertion that he has some imagined jurisdiction over local school boards and any potential crimes arising from their public meetings. Those are issues solely within the province of local police. There is no valid federal authority over such matters. The idea that irate mothers and fathers should be equated with domestic terrorists is repugnant. Garland's threat to punish parents for their sometimes vituperative views is an egregious abuse of power. This is nothing more than a corrupt attempt by the Attorney General to target political opposition. He wants to repress speech and discourage any resistance. If you're not careful with the words you choose, they may come banging at your door sooner than you think. And that is precisely what Biden and Garland want, to chill free speech and extinguish any dissent. I'm Greg Jarrett, Fox News.
You've been listening to the Fox News Rundown. Stay up to date by subscribing to this podcast at foxnewspodcasts.com. And for up-to-the-minute news, go to foxnews.com. Fox Fox News Radio on demand on the Fox News app. Download the app and just click listen. When you swipe left, you can listen to your favorite Fox News talk shows live. Swipe right for the latest Fox News Radio newscasts on demand. Fox News Radio on the Fox News app. Download it today.
Love Fox News? Click the subscribe button to get more of the news and opinion you trust. And click the Fox News Rundown playlist for the latest episodes.